Greetings from the Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics from Sri Ramakrishna Dental College and Hospital. Today we are going to be discussing the diagnostic aids in endodontics. In this we will be discussing case history and clinical examination and specifically pulp vitality tests in the clinics which are done commonly. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to understand what are the different steps involved in the diagnosis of pulpal condition and how to go about it, and apply this knowledge to perform different pulp vitality tests. At the outset, diagnosis is defined as a process of determining the nature of a disease condition by careful investigations of its symptoms and history. Now, what are these symptoms? Are these elicited by the patient or by the doctor? So, let us just briefly see what symptoms are. They are broadly a departure from the normal and they are indicative of the illness. So when we come to symptoms which are presented by the patient, we call them subjective symptoms. While if it is elicited by the dentist on specific questioning or examination, these are called objective. So the term used for objective symptoms is signs. So we call them signs and symptoms. So for correct diagnosis, can you think what are the different components required? Just pause this video and think for a second before proceeding further. So for correct diagnosis, there are three main components. The first is eliciting a proper and thorough case history. The second is the clinical examination. Now, based upon the case history and clinical examination, it will help us decide what are investigations and clinical tests we are going to do. And all these three together will help us in arriving at the. One of the commonest reasons the patient comes to us is because of pain. Just pain cannot be a diagnosis, but the components of the pain, the presentation of the pain can help us in arriving at a diagnosis. For example, what is the type of pain? If the pain is sharp, piercing and lancinating type, it can be more because of an acute condition, while a dull, gnawing and excruciating pain can be because of chronic causes. Duration of pain is also a very important indicator of the pulpal condition. For example, if the pain has been there only for the past 1 to 2 days and it has no previous history, it could be because of an acute episode which can be relieved by removing the stimulus. However, if the pain is very severe and it has been there for a very long time, it can indicate the irreversible condition of the pulp. In cases of chronic pain, the pain is not very well localized. Whereas in case of acute pain, patient will be able to point out to the particular tooth which is causing pain. Another important thing to consider is the provocating factors for the pain. Sometimes patient may tell you that the pain is aggravated on taking cold foods and relieved immediately. This may very well be because of a reversible condition of the pain, that is, when stimulus is removed, the pain is immediately relieved. When even after the removal of stimulus, maybe like a cold object or a hot liquid, the pain continues, in that case, it may be indicative of an irreversible pulpal condition. Similarly, whether the pain can be controlled by simple analgesics or there is no relief at all can tell you how long it will take you to relieve the pain and whether any immediate procedure needs to be carried out to relieve the patient's pain. Tenderness on biting may not be an indicator of the pulpal condition, but if the inflammation has progressed to the apical region, resulting in apical periodontitis, the patient may have tenderness. And associated lymphadenopathy will indicate that there is a spread of the infection. Coming to the extraoral examination, it should follow a sequential step. So, we examine the patient extraorally and look for any facial asymmetry and swellings. If there is asymmetry and a swelling on a particular side, it can very well give you an indication of an abscess, lymphadenopathy, changes in color in that area, bruises or scars, or signs of trauma can tell you what could have been the cause of this dental pain, which could be because of trauma or infection. Now going over to intraoral examination. Intraoral examination should always follow a sequential step. We should not jump over to the next step because the first step will give you an indication of what should be done in the next step. So the first is visual and tactile inspection. Look for any signs of caries, trauma, swelling, etc. in the oral cavity, and palpate the tooth, that is tactile inspection. Sometimes the patient may have so much pain because of apical periodontitis or apical abscess. You don't have to go to the next step, that is percussion, because if you percuss that tooth, it will result in severe pain. That is why first you should palpate digitally and then only go over to percussion. If there is pain on percussion, it is not an indicator of the status of the pulp, but it indicates that the apical periodontium is inflamed, and that too on vertical percussion. Palpation of the surrounding gingiva and mobility and depressibility testing of the particular tooth will also result in helping understand the status of the supporting structure, that is the periodontium and the bone. Then we go over to tests which assess the pulpal sensibility. So these are thermal tests, anesthetic tests, test cavity, and thermal tests and electric pulp tests are the most frequently done tests. The anesthetic tests and test cavities are done when all other diagnostic aids fail. Transillumination, biting, staining, and Gattapacha point tracing are steps which we will be discussing in another lecture to elicit the origin of the infection. And finally, we can go over to radiography to find out what is the condition of the entire tooth and the periapical tissues. So let us go over to the first step, which is visual and tactile inspection. You see the color, contour and consistency of both the hard and soft tissues. The soft tissues here are the gingiva and the buccal mucosa, and the hard tissues are the teeth. The instruments to be used are mouth mirror, explorer, and it is very important you should have a good illumination when examining these structures. Inflammation or reddening of an area around a particular tooth, discoloration of a particular tooth may give you a good indication where the pain has originated. Now palpation of the gingiva and the surrounding structure will give you an indication whether the swelling is hard or soft and tender. As I explained earlier, percussion is done to evaluate the status of the periodontium. Right away, we should not give heavy blow to the tooth. We should use the rear end of a mouth mirror, the handle of the mouth mirror, and hit it with a moderate blow with low intensity initially, and only increase the intensity later, so that if the patient is in pain, we don't cause unnecessary trauma and distress to the patient. Once pain is elicited, as I told you earlier, it indicates that there is inflammation of the periapical tissues. So what is the indication of a positive response? It means there is apical periodontitis. However, in certain normal conditions, for example, rapid orthodontic movement, or when there is a high point in a restoration, there can be a positive response. So unless you know by clinical examination what is the patient going through, he has had a recent restoration, we should check for high points and remove them, and not immediately jump to the diagnosis of pulpal problem leading to periodontal problem and give a treatment plan of root canal treatment. A negative response may not necessarily indicate that the periodontium is normal. It may also be because there is a chronic apical inflammation. Because of this, the periodontium is not responding. So we should correlate other findings and then arrive at our diagnosis. Now, mobility and depressibility test is very important, because when there is a lot of mobility of a particular tooth, it is always indicative of breakdown of the periodontal support of the tooth. So if there is grade 3 mobility, this is not just an endodontic condition, it is a combination of endodontic and periodontal problems. When there is acute inflammation, in many cases there is a good chance that the patient may have grade 1 to grade 2 mobility. And once the treatment is initiated, the mobility will come down. Nevertheless, we must do mobility test so that after we initiate the treatment, we know how much the mobility has been brought down. Now we come to the thermal test. Now, for any mechanism of nervous response, we must go over to the principle, which the most widely accepted principle is the hydrodynamic theory, which was given by Brandstrom. That is, there is movement of fluid within the dentinal tubules, and this movement within the dentinal tubules will affect the baroreceptors present in the pulp, resulting in a nervous response. So thermal tests are classified into two. One is the cold test and the other is the heat test. Remember that these are actually assessing the response of the nerves present in the pulp. When we want to do assessment of the vitality of the pulp, it is actually for assessing the blood flow of the pulp. However, these are advanced tests which are not routinely carried out. Therefore, in lieu of that, we do cold, heat and electric pulp tests. The first thing when we are doing any pulp vitality test is to explain the procedure to the patient and tell him, with the help of a control tooth, what he should expect. Now, whenever we do any pulp sensibility test, whether it be cold test, heat test or electric pulp test, we expect only one response, that is pain or a mild sensation. The patient by himself does not feel heat or cold, and when you explain the procedure to the patient, you must tell them with the help of a control tooth, which can be an adjacent or more importantly a contralateral tooth, to explain what kind of sensation they will feel. So you must isolate the tooth first so that there is no chance of your heated instrument or cold instrument to touch the soft tissues, and the test is always performed on the contralateral teeth first, and then you go over to the tooth which is to be assessed. Remember, when you are doing a heat test, the temperature should not go beyond 65 degrees Celsius, and the probe should not be placed on the tooth for more than 10 seconds, because this heat if placed on the tooth for a long time, can even damage the normal pulp. Now you can have a biphasic response. Either it can be a sharp localized pain or a dull radiating pain. Now what are the methods which we use to perform the heat test? You can use warm air. You can use hot water in a syringe, or you can use a hot gattaparcha stick. Apart from this, you can heat a burnisher over a flame and then apply it on the tooth. Other methods are using a pumice cup or a rubber cup running on the tooth, and the frictional heat which is generated by this rubber cup will generate heat and then elicit a response. Now few methods which are commonly used in our clinic using gattaparcha stick. So when you use gattaparcha stick, you should take the gattaparcha stick and place it over a flame and heat it adequately and place it on the incisal third of the tooth. Now a very important thing to remember here is we must be very careful in not keeping the stick on the tooth surface for longer than 5 seconds. If there is no response elicited, or if there is a mild response elicited, that is fine. But if you keep the gattaparcha stick on the tooth surface for longer, it has a very high temperature, 150 degrees Celsius, it will result in irreversible damage to the pulp. We can use hot water loaded in a syringe. In this case, to prevent the hot water from touching the other tooth surfaces, we have to isolate the tooth. Now in this case, hot water will not elicit, remain on one particular tooth surface. It is going to submerge the entire crown. That is why we don't do it so often. In case of full coverage restorations, we can use a wax instrument blade, heat it over a flame and place on the metal surface, or we can use a rubber cup, and the running rubber cup is placed on the surface of the crown for a few seconds. When this runs, it generates frictional heat, and then the heat will elicit the response. Coming to cold test, among the 3 tests, that is heat test, cold test and electric pulp test, the cold test is one of the most reliable tests. Now, there are different methods of using cold test. We can use frozen sticks of carbon dioxide, which is also known as dry ice. We can use cotton pellet, which is sprayed with dichloromethane, which is also known as endo ice. We can use ice sticks placed in syringes or small tubes. We can use ethyl chloride spray, and we can use stream of cold air also. Coming to carbon dioxide snow, it is one of the most effective methods of eliciting pulp vitality in immature teeth, because immature teeth do not have completion of myelination of the nerve fibers. So such lower temperatures are able to elicit a positive response if the pulp is vital. However, if you are testing vitality of a porcelain fused to metal crown or a ceramic crown, it is better not to use a carbon dioxide snow, because it will result in pitting of the surface of the crown. Now, difluoromethane is a cold testing medium, and it is not as less a temperature like carbon dioxide, but it does not produce any enamel changes. Similarly, ethyl chloride spray also. And all you have to do is spray it on a cotton pellet which is held with the help of a tweezer, and then keep it on the tooth to be tested, that is the incisal third. And then you can be safe with this, because you don't have to keep it for 5 seconds. You can keep it for as long as 15 seconds before any response is elicited. Now let us go over to the responses to these thermal tests. In case that you have done a heat or a cold test and you are not eliciting any response, it counts as no response. Either the pulp could be necrotic. The second reason could be that this pulp is vital. The pulp is normal, but there is excessive calcification. That is why the pulp was not able to respond to your thermal tests. In case of an immature tooth or a young patient, the nerve fibers are not completely developed. So in these cases also, you may not get a positive response. Therefore, combining the clinical examination along with the thermal test, we should decide what needs to be done. Sometimes wait and watch may be the best solution. Similarly, if a patient has had a recent trauma, the pulp may be stunned. In this case, the nerve fibers will not respond. Therefore, we call this a baseline pulpal response after trauma, and we recall the patient after regular intervals starting from 3 to 6 weeks up to 6 months to see if from this negative response the pulp is able to recover and give a positive response. Now, the other response given by the pulp could be a painful response which subsides when the stimulus is removed. This could be an indication of a reversible pulpal condition which could be caused because of caries, a high point in a tooth, or a recent trauma. Again, in this case, wait and watch will be the best policy. A moderate transient response is indicative of a normal pulp. Now, a painful response even after removal of the stimulus is a strong indication of irreversible pulpitis. When pulpitis is irreversible, then the treatment plan is to go for an endodontic treatment. Now, if we go over heat and cold tests, can you just reflect in what conditions would you go for a heat and cold test? What are the different conditions in which you will think of going for heat and cold test when you're examining a patient? So based upon the case history, your answer should be when the patient comes to you with either sensitivity or pain after trauma, or a history of trauma many years back and the patient is having pain now. The patient has a carious tooth which is either sensitive or painful. In all these cases, you should go over to what are the different types of pain which the patient is having, go over to taking case history, and then do your pulp vitality test with heat and cold test. The next test we are going to discuss for assessing pulp vitality is the electric pulp testing. In electric pulp testing, we use a specific instrument that delivers current onto the tooth surface. Now, when this current is delivered onto the tooth surface, the A delta fibers which are present in the pulp dentin complex will be stimulated. How are they stimulated? Because of a ionic shift in the dentinal fluid, which will result in depolarization of the nerves, resulting in generation of action potential, and this specifically works on A delta fiber. Similar to cold and heat tests, the electric pulp test is only assessing the nerve supply, and it is not going to give you any information about the vascular supply of the tooth. Now, how do you go about doing the electric pulp test? Now, the first thing is that the tooth should be isolated and dried, and then the probe of the electric pulp tester will be coated with an electrolyte, for example a toothpaste, and then kept on the incisal 2/3 of the labial surface of the tooth. Now, it is very important for us to complete the circuit to elicit an electric pulp test. In this case, you can see in the second photograph there is a lip clip. So this will finish the circuit. But in case of older pulpal testers, there is no lip clip provided. Therefore, the circuit is completed when we retract the cheek of the patient with our fingers. If we wear gloves, in those cases, the circuit will not be completed as rubber is an insulator of electricity. Therefore, using older pulp testers, we must not wear gloves. And if we are using the newer ones, you can either place a lip clip or keep an electrode, give the electrode to the patient to hold in his hands. The distinct advantage of electric pulp tester is that in heat and cold tests, there is a specific temperature of the media used to assess pulp testing. So you can't vary the temperature much. In case of electric pulp tester, when you suspect that there is irreversible pulpitis, even in low stimulus, it will elicit severe pain in the patient. Therefore, in electric pulp test, we can start with a lower intensity current, and once a positive response is elicited, we don't need to go any higher to cause patient discomfort. However, in case of electric pulp tester, there are certain disadvantages. You can't use them in patients who have cardiac pacemakers. Of course, it is quite expensive. Similar to cold and heat test, when the tooth is immature and not myelinated, you may get a false negative response. Now let us go over to what are the different kinds of responses elicited by pulp testing. Now, when do you get a false positive response? A false positive response means that the pulp is necrotic. It is non-vital, but the patient says, I have pain. He gives a positive response. So, when does this happen? This happens when there are metallic restorations, patients are very anxious, there is liquefaction necrosis of the pulp. So because of a conducting fluid which is present, the patient is giving a positive response, and you have not isolated the tooth properly. Isolation is very important when you do an electric pulp test. Now, a negative response, which means that the pulp is vital, but patient is not giving a positive response. Patient is giving a negative response. Could be because the patient has been pre-medicated with an analgesic. The patient had pain, he took an analgesic, and now because the inflammation is reduced, patient is not giving a response. Or patient has taken some narcotics or alcohol, or patient has a psychotic disorder. You have not properly done the test could also be a reason for a false negative response. In cases of immature teeth or recently traumatized teeth, just like for cold and heat test, the nerves are not responsive. In case of immature, myelination is incomplete. In case of trauma, the pulp nerves are stunned, and because of this, there is a negative response. One more condition is when the patient is undergoing orthodontic treatment, can be a reason for false negative response. Now, these are the different pulp testing equipment which are available. Now, after this lecture, we will have a short video which will show you how cold test, heat test and electric pulp vitality test are carried out. I hope that you find this lecture helpful in understanding diagnosis of endodontic conditions. This is Dr. Subha signing off. Thank you.